Even morning hygiene was part of a ritual. Pharaohs bathed, anointed their bodies with scented oils, and sometimes even had special rooms filled with incense and heated stones. The act of cleansing wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, purifying the pharaoh and preparing him to face the day as both a human and a god. Think of it as the ultimate morning routine, but with more symbolism and fewer YouTube tutorials. And let's not forget morning audiences and blessings. Once dressed, bathed, and spiritually ready, the pharaoh would sometimes meet officials or priests. These interactions weren't casual chats. They were ritualized displays of power, wisdom, and divine favor. Every gesture mattered, every word had meaning, and even the way the pharaoh walked could communicate cosmic balance. A nod here, a hand gesture there, all part of maintaining order in the eyes of the gods. Here's where it gets extra fascinating. Some pharaohs had secret personal rituals that only a few priests knew about. These could include meditation-like practices, silent prayers at specific hours, or even symbolic acts to honor a deity that protected the king in ways common people couldn't see. Imagine doing a spiritual check-in before even stepping into the palace hall, private, mysterious, and powerful. Morning rituals also had political power. Yes, we're talking politics in bed. Sort of. A pharaoh's ritual actions could signal strength, wisdom, or divine favor to officials and the people. Skipping a step could be risky. If the gods looked displeased, or if the ritual seemed sloppy, it might give enemies an excuse to challenge authority. So, even small rituals carried big consequences. One fun fact: pharaohs often had pets involved in morning rituals. Cats, dogs, or even monkeys might be present in the bedroom or palace courtyard. These weren't just cute companions. They were believed to carry protective energy or bring blessings. Imagine starting your day being licked by a sacred cat. Probably one of the earliest examples of pet therapy, but, ancient Egyptian style. The day continued with the pharaoh moving to temples, inspecting construction projects, or receiving tributes, but the morning set the tone for everything. It wasn't about laziness, luxury, or vanity. It was about balance, order, and connection to divine power. Each ritual built energy, focus, and spiritual authority, ensuring the pharaoh could rule effectively and keep Mot intact. From the moment the pharaoh opened his eyes, the day was alive with ritual, a dance between human and divine. And next we'll step outside the palace walls, into the temples and streets, to see how priests, officials, and ordinary Egyptians performed rituals that were just as intriguing and sometimes even stranger than those of the pharaoh himself. Now that we've peeked at the pharaoh's morning, let's take a stroll into one of ancient Egypt's temples. Imagine huge stone walls covered in bright paintings, statues of gods staring silently, and the faint scent of incense curling in the air. Temples weren't just fancy buildings. They were the beating heart of spiritual life, where priests performed rituals every single day. A temple in ancient Egypt wasn't a place for casual visitors. Common people usually stayed outside the main halls. Inside, a small army of priests and attendants worked like clockwork. Their main job, keep the gods happy. And the gods were picky. Each deity had their favorite foods, colors, chants, and offerings. Mess up, and you risked angering them. So the priest's life was basically part chef, part singer, part magician, and all serious business. The first task of the day was cleaning the temple, and I don't mean just sweeping a floor. Priests would wash the statues of the gods with water, oils, and sometimes milk. Yes, milk. And they didn't just wipe them down, they performed chants and blessings while cleaning, treating the statues like living beings. It's like saying, "Good morning, God. Hope you slept well," every single day. The idea was that the gods lived in the statues, so they had to be treated with respect and care. Next came food offerings. Temples had special kitchens where priests prepared bread, beer, fruit, and sometimes meat. These weren't meals for themselves. No, these offerings were presented to the gods first. Priests would place the food on altars, recite chants, and sometimes even feed the gods in elaborate ways. Only after the offering were the leftover portions considered safe for humans. Imagine cooking a fancy breakfast, bowing to invisible beings, and then finally taking a bite yourself. That's dedication. Every movement, every gesture had meaning. A misstep could be considered disrespectful, so priests practiced for years to get it just right. Another interesting practice involved symbolic gestures of protection. Priests would draw magical symbols on temple walls, sprinkle water in specific patterns, and sometimes use small amulets or charms. These rituals were meant to keep evil spirits away and maintain the temple's sacred energy. Think of it as ancient Egypt's version of a spiritual security system, only much cooler and way more mystical.